A lesson of watchfulness for listless and unwary disciples. Watch and pray that ye enter not into temptation. Life is a battle. The Christian contends with crafty foes who seek his immortal ruin. He is aided, if he desire to be, by the highest wisdom, by almighty power. Still his success is in his own keeping. He must fight earnestly, wisely, perseveringly, or he must fall. He must neither pause amid the strife, nor sink into dull forgetfulness after a victory. To do so is to be surprised and conquered, for his foe is weary and sleepless. Though foiled and beaten back, he is still at hand, preparing some new strategy by which to resume the warfare and win a triumph. Hence, it is that the voices of Scripture sound a constant alarm in the ear of the Church. They ring like the blasts of a trumpet in every ear, bidding every man who would overcome to watch. What I say unto you, I say unto all, watch, watch and pray, lest ye enter into temptation. Let us watch and be sober. Watch thou in all things, are its warning voices. To watch, as everyone knows, is to be vigilant, attentive, guarded, and prepared. It implies the perception of some threatening evil, which the watcher is determined to resist. To be successful, he must know somewhat of the character of the expected foe. He must understand his object and the strategy through which he may attempt its accomplishment. Otherwise, the most intense watchfulness may be in vain, as can be seen in the following illustration. During some of the early wars of our English ancestors with the aborigines of this country, a small detachment of soldiers stationed near a fortress had its sentinels posted along the margin of the forest which skirted the camp. From one of these outposts a sentinel disappeared one night, and no traces of his departure could be found. The next night, during the same watch, a second one was missing. The night following, a third one, in like manner, lost. By this time, the post had become an object of terror to the soldiers. Accordingly, the guard was doubled and received orders to fire on the first sign of danger. But the two sentinels also shared the mysterious fate of their comrades. The troops now showed a manifest unwillingness to mount guard on that dreaded spot at the fatal hour, and the commander called for a volunteer, appealing to the honor of his men and to the obvious necessity of guarding every point. The troops stood mute for a few minutes. Then a fine-looking young man stepped forward and offered to run the fearful risk. At the appointed hour, some of his comrades bore him company, begging him to fire at the first token of danger, and wishing him farewell, with words and looks which showed they deemed him doomed to the mysterious fate of their lost companions in arms. The man, after examining the lock of his musket, commenced pacing his prescribed distance with every faculty fully awake to his danger. An hour passed, and nothing disturbed him. He grew confident. Another hour, and he would be relieved. One half of that hour, too, had expired, and he was still safe. But now, through the deep gloom, he saw something moving stealthily toward him. He lowered his musket and kept his eyes fastened upon the approaching object. It moved so slowly he fancied sometimes it was but a delusion of the brain. Then again he felt sure it did move, and was on the point of firing, but the idea of giving a false alarm restrained him. Presently he felt sure it was really advancing, and it seemed to him to be a black bear. He hesitated to alarm the camp for such an enemy, but observing that it made a quickened movement, and stimulated by a strong impulse, he fired. The seeming animal sprang upward, groaned, and lay still. All the sentinels along the line discharged their pieces. The camp was aroused. The troops came rushing to the rescue, and found the foe to be an Indian concealed in the skin of a bear. The soldier's ball had pierced his heart, and he was dead. The mystery was now solved. The Indians had stolen in this guise upon the previous sentinels and strangled them. The poor man, unsuspicious of the trick and fearing to give an alarm by firing at a bear, had permitted their wily enemies to steal toward them until near enough to spring upon and disarm them, when they fell an easy prey. The scalped bodies of the murdered men were afterwards found in a swamp covered with leaves and branches. Here, then, we have the idea of unsuccessful watchfulness illustrated. The men who perished were unquestionably intent on guarding both themselves and the camp, but not understanding the stratagem of their crafty adversary, they knew not how to detect his approach. After it was discovered, they were prepared to defeat it if attempted again. So, in the spiritual life, it is essential to understand the purpose of the great adversary and the plans by which he aims to execute it. Without such knowledge, the believer is almost sure to be overcome, despite his watchfulness and care, for he cannot know what to watch or where to expect his foe, and must therefore fight disadvantageously. Now the grand object of the tempter of men is to persuade believers to cast away their confidence, this being the only means by which he can finally destroy them. Hence the stress laid by the Scriptures on the necessity of keeping the faith and of fighting the fight of faith. Paul, summing up his Christian life, states as its triumphal result that he had kept the faith. To keep the faith, therefore, is the object for which the good man contends. To induce him to cast it away is the aim of Satan, because if faith is lost, all is lost. If faith is maintained, heaven is won and believers saved. Hence, the whole battle of salvation is fought at this point, and for these issues. The man contends for his faith, the tempter seeks to destroy it. Knowing this, how studiously should you, O Christian disciple, watch your faith? How suspiciously should you scrutinize every fact, suggestion, influence, or solicitation which in any way tends to weaken your confidence in God, or to dim your vision of spiritual objects. With what keen attention and guardedness of mind should you observe the relation of your habits, of thought, of conversation, of business, or of indulgence, to the growth or diminution of your faith. For thus to observe is to watch, and thus to watch is to be saved from surprise and consequent defeat. For a faith thus resolutely guarded will, in all probability, be kept until, standing in full view of the heavenly city with its golden light pouring a flood of glory upon your soul, as a victorious believer you exclaim with Paul, I have fought a good fight, I have finished my course, I have kept the faith, henceforth there is laid up for me a crown of righteousness. Thus watching, you will learn to sing with the sacred poet, Watts. My cheerful soul, now all the day, sits waiting here and sings, looks through the ruins of her clay, and practices her wings. Faith almost changes into sight, while from afar she spies her fair inheritance in light above created skies.